Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 112. Hi, I'm Chris. Thank you for joining us today.
And I'm Jill. Chris and I are the founders of the Becoming Elli Community, which is for women over 50 who are interested in being fit, strong, and healthy.
We named our group Becoming Elli because Elli was the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. And Jill and I thought, hey, we want to be like Elli.
Indeed, we do. You can find out more about the Becoming Elli Community and sign up for our newsletter at our website, becomingelli.com. And Elli is spelled E-L-L-I.
Yes. Jill, hey, do you want to explain today's episode? It's a little bit different than usual.
Sure. So today we're going to answer some of the questions that people have asked us recently. Some of those questions have come from people who joined the Becoming Elli Facebook group, and others came from podcast listeners. We just sort of combined the questions and decided to try to answer them.
Yes. And our first question has to do with building strength, which is a very popular topic with us.
What's brought this up is that a number of women have said they're very active. They're doing a lot of running or bicycling or yoga or whatever, but they're struggling with getting started with strength training, even though they know it's an important thing to do. Yeah, it's important to do, but it's challenging if you're not used to doing it.
I'm sure everyone knows, or at least has heard the statistic about for every year, I think it's almost after 40, but definitely after 50, you lose 1% of muscle. And it also affects bone density, which is a very important thing as you age to keep strong bones. So if, anything happens and you fall, which happens, easily.
Yes.
You want to make sure you don't break something.
Yeah. Last winter, Penny, my dog, pulled me right over fortunately, I fell into a snowbank, but, I fell over.
Right.
Dog.
You can do everything for balance and flexibility and all of those things, but every once in a while, bone density is helped by strength training, and
Yes.
certainly muscles are helped with strength training, and it starts to leave you as you age. So we're very keen on strength training.
Yes, we are. So, Chris, if I come to you or someone comes to you and says, I want to get started with strength training, what might you say to them?
I would say very first thing, check out our episode number 100. And 100 was a awesome big deal episode because it's all about lifting. And we actually took excerpts from experts who teach people how to lift. So that would be the very first thing I would say to someone, that podcast episode is probably the first key if you are thinking about starting or you have some fears about starting with strength training. What would you say, Jill?
Well, rather than just sort of stumbling around trying to figure out what to do and maybe sitting there doing bicep curls.
Not that there's anything wrong with
I like doing bicep curls. I'm a big fan of bicep curls. Actually, I like them. But, it only gets your biceps.
Yeah, so, that's only one muscle group, right?
Exactly. So I'm sort of agreeing with you. There's lots of resources available. If you are doing this on your own, then I would find something that one of the trainers that are online, we've interviewed a number of them that all have great programs. I would check into any of those and start to follow that. If you have a gym available to you, then typically when you join a gym, or even if you've been a member, somebody in the gym, trainers or whatever, will give you a program to follow. And that's what I would do, is I would get something that gives you strength training for your whole body that you can do a couple of times a week and progress with it. So, you start off doing it and then maybe you increase the number of reps that you do, or you slowly increase the weight or whatever, but something that will allow you to progress that hits the whole body.
The important thing too that you mentioned about, getting with someone who knows what they're doing is to get important form, to make sure your form is right so that when you're actually lifting heavy weights, you're not going to hurt yourself by not using proper form.
Yes. I know I did that free 30-day Peloton, the bike people.
Oh, okay, sure.
They had a free 30-day use of their workout app. So I tried it. And they had a ton of strength workouts. They do a lot of things besides biking.
Oh, it wasn't just bike?
Oh, no.
I figured it was going to be all on the bicycle.
They had yoga and whatever, but they had some killer strength training workouts in there.
Okay.
And they tell you what body parts it's for and what you need if you can just do it with body weight, or if you need dumbbells or whatever, resistance bands. That was a great resource. But yeah. I only did it for 30 days because I did the free sample. But if I didn't have anything else available to me, that might work.
I know there was one of the women that we interviewed, Nia Shanks, has a lot of online basic get started with 4 different exercises or 3 different exercises. And then you do an A workout and a B workout, and you alternate them. Just like you said, a couple times a week. Usually people, when they're beginning with strength exercises, do it twice a week, 20 minutes a time. Would you say that's about accurate?
So I think the problem most of us have is like we're starting something new. We get very enthusiastic. So it's like with a little bit is good, more is better. But
right.
Strength training, that's a really good way to end up very, very sore. And then you maybe quit doing it.
Jumping in and doing too much at once. Yeah.
That's probably my other advice on getting started is don't overdo it.
Right.
Just be gradual about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess, like one thing I didn't really realize, but is very true, is when you're actually doing the exercise, that breaks down the muscle. And then it's the next day or two where your muscle's repairing, that you're actually building muscle, and that recovery period is critical for building muscle. So you might feel great that day and you might feel okay the next day too. And you do too much again the next day. You know what I mean?
Right. So yeah, you build the muscle by the muscle has tears slightly. I mean, you don't want to tear, but you get slight tears. And then when it knits itself back together, it is stronger.
Yeah.
Basically is not that I'm a biologist or a doctor or anything, but that's my understanding of how it works. But that's also why the protein is important, because the body uses protein to build the muscle.
That's just what I was thinking too, because we did an episode on protein bars. I don't think any of those were actually the kind of protein that we're talking about. It's the amount of protein as a percentage of what you eat, so that, you have a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fat. And women over 50 typically have a tough time getting enough protein. That's something that comes up over and over in our conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's hard because most of us really like eating the carbs and the fat, but getting protein in is important.
Yep. I will include a link to a couple of those different episodes that we just talked about.
Oh, back to Nia Shanks for a minute. I do want to say that her book, so yes, she has lots of online resources, but her book, which is called
Lift Like a Girl,
is excellent. And she has all of the workouts in there, and it's very motivational. But also it's simple. She does not start you off with, you're not doing 110 different exercises. You're basically doing 3 or 4 that hit multiple parts of your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a quick workout that you do, and she tells you how often to do it or how often to repeat it. And I think gives you some good ideas on how to figure out what weight to start at. And that might be my other tidbit of advice. You should adjust what weight you're using, but when you're starting out, you don't need to prove to anyone that you're really strong. Just start with something that you can use comfortably, and you'll work your way up in no time.
Because form is most important at the beginning.
Yes.
Get the exercise down in your muscle memory or whatever you want to call that, so that you can do the form without like scooping your back or all the different things that, form is more important than the amount of weight.
And I did not mean to suggest there was anything wrong with doing a bicep curl. So
right. No. It's just the first thing that you go to.
It is. And it's funny when you're at the gym, you can see people that they walk over, they pick up a dumbbell and they start doing bicep curls.
Well, without researching it at all, pretty soon you're like, okay, bicep curls and let's see, triceps and Arnold's and, flies and lunge, all these different things. There's so many things to do, but it's hard to just think of it on the spot. If you don't have a program, it's nice to have a little program there.
So get something, if you're going to try and do it on your own, but you use some of these resources, get a little tablet, write down what you're going to do for a workout and record how many reps you did, what weight you used.
Yeah. And then send us a little photo of your paper on the Becoming Elli Facebook group, if you're a member of the private Facebook group.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be a really motivational thing to see what people are doing.
That's true. It would be. I'd like to see that.
So our next question is about sleep. And that's also a topic that we talk about a lot. Recently, you and I were talking, Jill, about the importance of light in getting enough sleep. And do you want to explain a little bit about that?
So, yes, somebody on our podcast mentioned that at some point, and I had not heard that before. But in our recent podcast episode with Colette Harris, I think that was episode 110. So a recent one.
Yeah.
She mentioned, she had a lot of resources that she mentioned, but one of them was a podcast called the Huberman Lab. And Dr. Huberman is, I don't know what his first name is, but anyway.
Andrew
Huberman. He is a neuroscientist at Stanford. Anyway, he has this podcast called the Huberman Lab, and he has a whole series of episodes about sleep. So I was listening to them because, we're always interested in sleep. So he started talking about the light, and I thought, hey, somebody on our podcast talked about light, and so he did. But
yeah, that was Carice Laguerra. And that was episode number 94 in November of 2021.
Oh, that was all about sleep.
Called Healing Through Better Sleep. So I'll link to that one as well. But go on about Andrew, because he said something really interesting.
He is big on trying to improve your sleep without having to take medications or whatever, naturally. And the one thing is to improve your circadian rhythm, which is when your body wants to wake up and when your body wants to sleep. And he says that the easiest, best way to get your circadian rhythm on track is to expose yourself to early morning sunlight. And so to go outside and as close to dawn as you are, if you sleep past when the sun comes up, then go out whenever you get up and expose yourself without sunglasses or your car window. So it can't just be driving to work in the morning.
Yeah. Or even your house window.
Yes.
It's better not with a glass in between.
Yes. But your regular glasses, eyeglasses and contacts are fine. He said, because their whole role is to focus light into your eyes anyway. So,
but he also says something about don't look directly at the sun because it'll burn your retina, blah, blah, blah. And we think we know that part already, but just wanted to mention it because he always makes a big deal about that.
No,
too.
You don't have to look at the sun. You just have to get the light on your face in the morning. And also, if possible, at the end of the day, it's good to get the sunlight, the setting sun on your face in the evening, because that whole cycle triggers what your body needs to get your circadian rhythm on track. And he says if you do that several days in a row, it will not take long before you will notice your body. You will go to sleep. You'll have better time sleeping.
And you know what? I tried it. That's absolutely true. And I have to say, I am not taking melatonin anymore. I don't even need that anymore. But doing that, it's the low light because the angle of the sun. And of course, it's been sunny the last few days. And I've tried it. It was 2 weeks ago when I did it. It really does work. But, so it's a low sun that has just risen in the morning and then a low sun as it's about to set in the evening. And it resets your circadian rhythm. It really does. And makes it very easy. And I've had better sleep the last few weeks than I have in years. It really made a big difference.
So it is summertime right now here in Ohio. And so it is easier to go outside and get some sunlight first thing in the morning.
Right. The weather is good.
The weather is good. And I just got back from a 2-week camping trip. So I started every morning by just going outside and sitting outside in this beautiful scenic place, drinking my morning coffee and getting sunlight in the morning. It was wonderful. But perfect. I was thinking this is going to be hard to do come January or November.
Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast long after we recorded it and you're thinking, well, yeah, it's wintertime now and there's hardly any sunlight. He did mention that he uses like an iPad white screen when he doesn't have access to sunlight. He says it's not as good, but it is an option.
The other interesting thing is that he talks about blue light. And, everyone's all up in arms over blue light and that you should have blockers and all of that.
Right.
He said, actually, we need blue light, and blue light is a natural phenomenon. And so it is something we need. We don't want to eliminate it completely. And it maybe is beneficial to block it at night, but he didn't seem to be even totally convinced of that.
Yeah. Well, I think when you take everything that he said, you put it together, it's natural is better.
Yeah.
We're so used to being indoors with artificial lights and staying up later with artificial light and all of that. And it does impact the sleep. It's a neat way to get your circadian rhythm back on track.
Yes. He has lots of other helpful tips too, which maybe we can cover some other time.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, because there was a lot to it.
There was a lot.
But he did say light was like number one.
Number one thing.
Jet lag or anything that, when you're trying to get your sleep back on track.
Oh, I know what else I wanted to say about what he said about light. Bright lights after the hours of 10 p.m. really mess up your sleep hormones.
Yeah, your body thinks that it's time to wake up when you get the bright light in the middle of the night, which is a problem. Like if you're in the hospital and they turn the lights on to get your temperature and stuff. I imagine if you work a night shift, that's really difficult.
Yes. And he does have an episode about shift work, but I haven't listened to it because that isn't an issue for me yet right now. But it did make me think of, people who get up during the night to go to the bathroom and they often turn on the light. That's a very bright light in the middle of the night. So that might be a good time to try and use like a nightlight or something.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anyway, he was very emphatic about the bright light after 10 o'clock being detrimental to your sleep.
Yeah, that's important.
Okay. What's our next question?
The next question was about sheet pan dinners.
Oh, yeah. So in episode 107, Joyce Gunther talked about, we asked her for her go-to dinner. That's a question we like to ask people. And what do you cook when, time is tight and you need dinner and something that's tasty and healthy? And Joyce gave us her Mediterranean chicken sheet pan dinner. So we have had some discussion about sheet pan dinners and what other things can you have. Hers was a Mediterranean. It had chicken and olives and peppers, maybe cheese. I can't remember.
Mediterranean chicken sheet pan dinner on all recipes. That's what she said to do. Yeah. And it has feta cheese, lemons. It looks delicious.
Basic sheet pan dinner that I do is just chop up a bunch of vegetables, whatever I have, like sweet potatoes or broccoli, cauliflower, any kind of Brussels sprouts, put a little olive oil on them, and then maybe a little bit of spice of some kind, even if it's just salt and pepper, but, some garlic or red pepper or something, and roast that. I may put a chicken breast with the same seasonings on it and just sort of roast it all in the oven on a sheet pan.
Yeah, I do a lot of roasted vegetables. I saw a recipe recently about chicken fajitas, and basically they just sliced up the red peppers, green peppers, and onions like in a fajita style, with the long strips.
Oh, yeah.
Cooked it on a sheet pan. And then they also had strips of the chicken and used a little bit of seasoning on there to make it more into a fajita, and served it with salsa on the side.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
I like to order fajitas, but when you're at a restaurant, there's a lot of oil on them.
Right. They're so greasy. I don't like it. that greasy, a
No.
little bit of olive oil. And sometimes I'll just use the spray olive oil. I'll spray the parchment paper because I hate the cleanup of a sheet pan. I know that sounds kind of silly, but if I put down parchment paper first, then I spray a quick spray on there and put down the vegetables and whatever else. The cleanup is so easy.
Yes, I love parchment paper. And I will tell you, this is just a silly little story about parchment paper, but I bought 2 big rolls of parchment paper from Costco. And then I was reading an article, like things that they aren't carrying anymore at Costco. And they said the parchment paper. I was like, oh no, I love parchment paper.
You got it on closeout.
I saw it and I bought it. So now I have 4 large rolls of parchment paper. Well, it turns out they weren't really getting rid of it. It's just a seasonal item. They only carry it at some times of the year. So there's no parchment paper shortage. Especially at my house. I have a lifetime supply.
Well, I do like parchment paper because it just makes the cleanup so easy. And sometimes when I'm cooking dinner, easy is top of the list.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a busy day and all that.
Yes. I also sometimes, instead of chicken, I use salmon on a sheet pan dinner.
Oh, yeah. Now, when you do salmon, how do you season it? What spices do you use?
So sometimes I just use a little lemon. And salt, pepper, little lemon, rub olive oil on it. But you can also use things like a soy sauce type or a mixture of soy sauce with a little garlic, a little
basil or dill or something.
Yeah. So I just tend to do whatever I have at hand or what I feel like. And but salmon cooks quickly. So it works well on a sheet pan.
I know one challenge I've had on the sheet pans is when I don't cook or I don't cut the vegetables consistently, like I'll have long strips or small chunks of something. And then you have different amounts of times for things. I try to make everything a consistent size, but
yes.
No, we were talking the other day about your air fryer. And I know you have a lot of recipes for that. And then I was telling you about my Instant Pot because I was so excited to get it when I first got it. And then, I don't know, I don't use it that much. And so you had some ideas for the Instant Pot. And I wanted you to.
Yeah, so I like my Instant Pot, but I'll tell you what I use it for. So I use it for a lot for like food prep kinds of things. So I will cook chicken in it. I just take a couple of chicken breasts, cook them in there. And then I have chicken ready for salads or whatever I want to use chicken in.
Chicken fajitas.
Chicken fajitas, yeah. So I like to have cooked chicken around because it's easy to just throw in as a last minute ingredient.
Right.
When I'm in a hurry.
Yeah, because trying to make the protein, Right.
And it's not like chicken breasts take for a really long time to cook, but it's even easier if they're already cooked. So I like to have that. So I will use the Instant Pot for cooking, and you can throw frozen chicken breasts in the Instant Pot and you don't have to defrost it first.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yes. So I do that. I also cook things like quinoa or brown rice or whatever, things that I can cook on the stove. But if I cook it in the Instant Pot, it takes about the same amount of time by the time it builds up its pressure and it releases and all of that. So it's not a big time saver, but it is something that I can assemble the ingredients, I turn it on, and then I can go do something else. I don't have a pot on the stove that I have to stick around for.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've let my quinoa boil over by mistake.
Yes. So it's the same amount of time, but when you open it up, it's perfect. I have not yet had, sometimes when I do the rice on the stove, I don't have enough water in there for some reason. Like, why is it sometimes that the water disappears and it's like, I didn't have enough or I had too much and it's still a soupy mess. I'm not a great cook. I'm not a great rice cooker, I guess, but the Instant Pot works really well. And I also use it for things like steel cut oats.
Yeah.
Because they take a while. And again, that's something. So obviously I'm looking for things that eliminates having to leave pots on the stove for an extended period of time, because I am easily distracted and I'm much more comfortable knowing that because I can leave something in the Instant Pot, forget about it and come back an hour later and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And that's a great way for doing food prep, which I found food prep makes all the difference in what kind of week I'm going to have from a healthy eating standpoint. Is if I prep a bunch of stuff, I like eating it, but if it's all ready, it's so easy.
Yes. So, and I also do hard-boiled eggs in my Instapot. And again, okay. I know I can make those on the stove, but they really come out well. I can do a fair number of them at once if I want to.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I was just reading about something where there's one person on, I forget if it was Pinterest or where I was reading it, but she said that every week she buys a whole chicken and she puts it in her Instapot and cooks it. And that's part of her meal prep. When she gets home from the grocery store, she just basically takes that chicken and puts it inside the Instapot. Now, I know a lot of people will buy those rotisserie chickens because they're already done.
Right.
But I found that those have a lot of salt. For me, it's too much salt for me.
They inject them with a brine.
Yeah, but I do like the idea of having that chicken all done. So, maybe I'll start adding that to my food prep is make a chicken and have that chicken available.
So I have also, speaking of having a whole chicken, I have never cooked a whole chicken in my Instapot. I've always roasted those, but I have certainly taken the bones and all of it and made my chicken broth or turkey broth or whatever in the Instapot.
Yeah.
That works really well.
Yeah, I imagine it would.
If you cook a whole chicken, this is the food prep thing, you still have all those bones and things to get rid of.
Right.
I don't know. Why does that bother me? And that just sounds like a mess. I also do some grilling. Do you grill now that it's summertime?
Well, we did grill a lot last summer. This summer, we kind of got out of the habit, and I'm not exactly sure. I know, because there's a bee nest that's flying in and out right next to my grill, and I'm waiting for my husband to kill those bees because, I'm allergic to them.
Yes.
So I haven't been using that grill. That's why, because I was thinking, why am I not using the grill? Oh, yeah.
Because there are bees. The bees have taken over. But it's really
nice to have grilled vegetables in the summer, and you don't have to turn the stove on. The oven gets kind of hot in the summer.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you usually cook on the grill?
Well, again, I will cook salmon or shrimp with seafood on the grill.
Okay.
That's really fast. That doesn't take long.
Keeps the fish smell out of the house.
And you can do those either just wrap them up in foil and cook them on the grill, or you can put them directly on the grill and grill them. Occasionally I'll do like kebabs where you put chunks of meat, chicken, beef, whatever, with chunks of vegetables and a marinade.
Yeah, that sounds good too.
And then meat. I do eat some red meat. So occasionally I'll have like a steak or something on the grill. And corn. You know what? I cook a lot. When I cook corn now, I no longer boil a giant pot of water and boil corn on the cob. I soak it a bit in some water, and then I just throw it on the grill in the husks and everything.
Yeah, the husks are still on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it sort of like steams it in there.
That's tasty too.
I like that. Yeah. The only problem with that sometimes is that when you go to strip the husks off, it's hot. So
it's very hot, right?
You have to be careful or have some, towels or something to protect your hands.
That's the problem. That's the whole problem with corn on the cob. It tastes so good, but man, it's hot and it's easy to get burned.
Yeah. In Ohio right now, this is like prime corn season. So there's some good stop at the produce stand and pick up corn.
Yeah. And then our last question of today's podcast has to do with summer exercise. And I think we had talked a little bit about that, especially the challenges of hydration with summer exercise.
Yeah. So you have the whole heat thing, and it is challenging to go out and run in the heat, though I feel bad sometimes complaining about it. Heat is relative depending on where you are, because some people live someplace where when it gets to be 80 degrees, it feels really hot. And to other people, 80 degrees is like laughable as being hot.
And I think it's what you're used to too, because, for training for, any kind of race or something like that, if you haven't trained in the heat and then all of a sudden the day of your race, things are really hot, it can just change your whole ability to perform in a big way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You would definitely run more slowly if the temperature is higher.
Right. And you should, because you'll overheat.
The one thing I like about summer exercise, and I'm not even sure I would call it summer exercise, but summer activities, is that a lot of the workouts and strength building and whatever that you do all year round, summer comes and suddenly someone says, hey, let's go kayaking.
Right.
You're like, oh yeah, okay. Just summer activities that maybe even aren't the most strenuous things in the world, but you do them without even noticing that they are strenuous somewhat, that
right.
You're able to do them.
Yeah.
I've been riding my bike a lot. I don't mean riding my bike like I'm training for a triathlon. I mean like riding my bike. Hey, let's go.
Casual
bike riding. Yes.
Yep.
And so, as I said, I was on vacation for a couple of weeks and I rode my bike all over because it was an easy way to get around. I wasn't strenuous, but I never even thought about, well, here, I'll tell you what I did think about. All these people where I was were riding these e-bikes. And some of the people weren't even pedaling at all. It was like they were riding them, treating them as mopeds. They were just sitting on there and setting it on high and zooming off.
Yeah. Well, I think e-bikes have a place.
Well, yeah.
I prefer just a regular old bike.
Right.
Myself.
Well, so I did feel a little virtuous that I was just riding my bike.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and also while I was camping, I went into a outdoor adventure store and they had this huge display with rock climbing gear. So that made me think about Carol Simpson that we interviewed a few weeks ago.
So Jill, did you climb up that wall?
No, they didn't actually have a wall. They just had all the gear you could sell. It was
a display, but it wasn't an interactive display.
Yeah. There was a child's playground and it had a little 4-foot wall on it. I didn't want to knock the little children off to get to it. So
out of the way, kid.
I got to do this. So I think we've covered everything we wanted to discuss today. Is there anything else, Chris?
No, I think that's pretty much what we had talked about, the questions that have come through. Of course, I'd like to hear from our listeners. If you have anything that you want to ask us or you want to share about sleep or strength training or food, exercise in the summer, please let us know.
Yes, if you have any other questions for us too, send them our way. We'll save up some more of these and do this again. Maybe we can do this periodically if people find it helpful.
You can reach us at our website, becomingelli.com, or on any of our social media accounts. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Also, be sure to join our private Facebook group where we encourage and support each other. And if you enjoy the podcast, please tell a friend.
It was great talking with you today, Jill. I'm really looking forward to our next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
I am too. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.